Hello YouTube. I consider myself a pretty decent 2.6 player, however I've never managed to crack my way through to the top of ladder. So what's the difference then between a top 200 2.6 player and me? Well, for this video, a friend of mine called 3style4life has kindly agreed to share some replays for me to analyze for you guys. 3style is an absolute monster with 2.6, having numerous top 200 finishes. In this video, I'm going to be first analysing a LavaHound game, then Golem, Pekka Bridge Spam, Miner Mortar, and finally Drill Cycle. Without further ado, let's get right into it. So in this first game, 3style is playing against LavaHound. The opponent zaps, goes for a Bomber and Knight to deal with the Ice Golem Hog. So from that, 3style is already probably kind of guessing that this is a LavaHound deck. This is quite a meta deck at the moment, running Evo Zap in this kind of deck. He logs, and you look at how he doesn't overcommit. He doesn't cycle back to an Ice Golem, he just goes for, he tanks the Bomber hit and just goes Ice Spirit Skeletons. Cycles a Musketeer first in the back so that he can get back to another one if he needs it. And, you know, he's not going too aggressive. He already got his damage, now he needs to defend. Goes for an Ice Golem to defend against the Inferno Dragon. And you can see how he goes for this really nice defensive Hog Rider. Plays it in the middle so it pulls back the Inferno Dragon just a little bit, but mainly just distracts. It's distracting the Inferno Dragon from locking on the Musketeer. And now everything's dead. Cycles back to another Musketeer. And unfortunately the Bomber does get a hit on the tower, but he's already up quite a significant amount of damage. So really good start to the game. Against Cannoneer LavaHound, you've got to be careful. You've got to be a lot more solid on your defense. You can't be as aggressive on offense. This is a really important cannon placement. He plays it one tile higher than the cannon placement you'd use to counter like Ram Riders and Hog Riders. It gives you more time to react if you play it a tile higher, and both towers hit the balloon. So I Spirit in the back kind of baits out the opponent's arrows and then goes for a Hog Rider. Again, just trying to get as much value on defense, because he's probably going to Musketeer either way, and this way the Musketeer now kills Skelly Drags as well. So, really nice gameplay so far. Musketeer, again, he doesn't try defending it, doesn't waste his Evo Skeletons or anything, and he goes for this. The opponent has used his arrows and doesn't have it in cycle, so he zaps the left side and is forced to Bomber on the right side. Now, you might wonder, like, why did he go in on the right side? It's kind of just, he went for this Evo Skeleton split push just to force out Elixir. He wasn't really trying to get damage in the right lane because that's like his objective. It can help in a 2-tower situation. But the point of doing that play was just, you know, look, he managed to force out the opponent's Evo Knight and Bomber, which is now not going to be used in this lava push, so it should be pretty easy to defend. You can see how he consistently goes for these defensive Hog Riders to pull back the support troops, while cycling Musketeers, manages to get another cannon down, gets really good fireball value. Just notice how he also didn't necessarily try and hit all the support troops with the fireball. It's more important to just get rid of the lava pups so that the Musketeer and your towers aren't distracted. If you can hit them, great, but, you know, hitting the lava pups is more important. This is a pretty clean game so far. He just, you know, applies pressure with the Hog Rider, and the tower's in spell cycle range, so he's just waiting. First you defend, then you can spell cycle. It's not worth it to just, you know, randomly start spell cycling and possibly lose to like a balloon push. So yeah, manages to get fireball value onto the Skeleton Dragons, which was nice. 419, that's what, 2 logs and a fireball. So goes for a Hog Rider again, kind of just getting Hog Rider damage, and or at least forcing Elixir out so, you know, the opponent can't go in. And I'm sure he could have spell cycled earlier if he wanted to. Low-key almost choked the game, allowing the Inferno to lock on the tower by accident. Didn't get the Ice Golem down in time, but GG's. So in this game, 3style is playing against Golem Healer, and he goes for this Hog Rider Ice Spirit at the start of the game, and the point of those placements that he did was that the Ice Spirit kind of pushes the Hog Rider slightly outwards when it reaches the tower, and that can sometimes mess up the opponent's NATO timing and get you a hog hit. The opponent's just cycling a healer in the back, and at this point 3style already knows this is Golem Healer, because this is the only deck in the game that runs heal and NATO. Goes for a Hog Rider in the left lane because Tornado's out of cycle and the opponent drops a Golem, so doesn't have Elixir and doesn't have a good hog counter in hand, so the opponent's just tanking it. And yeah, the Musketeer completely DPSs down the Golem. So all that's really left are these Golemites and the support troops. So he goes for a high Ice Golem. High to keep it as far away from the tower as possible, and the Ice Golem kills the bats and slows everything down. And then he just Fireball and then logs on defense, and he's up 1200 damage right at the start of the game. So the opponent goes for a Elixir Pump in the back and a Knight as well. Evo Ice Spirit at the bridge. There's not really any point keeping it in hand, especially in single Elixir. You can always get back to another one for when he actually goes in for a big Golem push. But in this matchup, the opponent doesn't have any big spells, so you want to be cycling Musketeers in response to them cycling support troops in the back. Because you can always get back to it, and they don't really have a good way of killing it. He goes for a Hog Rider, just kind of to distract and try and, let his Musketeer DPS down as much as possible. Evo Skellies, completely clutch up, as always. Really nice Ice Spirit. The Ice Spirit allows the Evo Skellies to then chain on the Knight, and you can see, look, they just keep going. Kind of forces out a Panic Rage by the opponent, and you can see how you can utilize even these really cheap, cycle cards, but the evolutions are just so strong that you can force out so much Elixir and apply so much pressure. So now's the time where the opponent goes for his big Golem push in the back. So first you cycle, Musketeer. Like I said, the opponent doesn't have any big spell, and the only way he can kill a Musketeer in this matchup is by going E-Drag and NATOing everything together. And that's probably what's going to happen. So he goes for a Hog Rider, and the Hog Rider kind of just distracts stuff and pulls everything back. And you can see how he's isolated that Golem. Like, the other support troops haven't even crossed the bridge, and that Golem's already dead. So now he just has to cycle Fireballs. Because of the Evo Knight and all these support troops behind it, you kind of need to cycle a Fireball, and sometimes even just two. But in this case, everything's clumped together, so he can just kite everything one way and then kite everything back. And yeah, towers all helping out. He manages to get 2 Musketeers on the field, and the opponent got basically 0 damage in the left lane. Again, another Hog Rider in the middle. You can see between these last 2 matchups how often he goes for Hog Rider in the middle against beatdown decks. Just going for this Hog Rider to distract support troops. It's something I mentioned in a previous video of something Ian does, that just going for these defensive Hog Riders is very strong. But it's not a game over. Golem just works by winning in one big push, so he still has to be accurate in the way in which he defends this. So he goes for a Fireball first. You kind of do this against healer decks because it's kind of hard to kill E-Drags, and so just going for multiple Fireballs on the support troops is kind of better than just stacking Musketeers. Kind of depends on your cycle. So in this case, again, defensive Hog Rider distracts, whereas now he's got this Evo Knight push. There's not really much point. It's not really like a big threat. The Evo Knight push, you can just Ice Golem Kite and stack more Musketeers. Goes for a really, really good Fireball, because that puts the opponent now in Fireball range. So just cycles the log, and yeah, spell cycle range, just needs another Fireball. Perfect game, basically. In this next game, 3style is playing against a Miner Mortar deck with Evo Archers, and even though it's not too bad a matchup, it can be difficult sometimes to defend. So you're going to see how he manages to do it in this game. He cycles an Ice Golem in the back and uses his Skeletons instead to DPS and get rid of the Archers. Opponent responds with a Skeleton King in the back, and so 3style's like, okay, I'll just go for a Musketeer. We're just cycling cards, and at this point in the game, we're just trying to figure out what exactly the opponent has and what all of his cards are. Goes for a cannon to DPS down the Miner, and goes for a Ice Golem just to kite everything over to the left lane. Ice Golem still has some HP, so he just goes in for a Hog Rider in the left lane. Doesn't go in too aggressively. Perhaps he could have Fireballed the Mortar and forced some more Elixir out, but it's unnecessary. At this point, it's too early in the game to need to go for these kinds of plays. You can just try and figure out what the opponent is playing. So, split Archers in the back from the opponent. And so 3style responds with Musketeer in the back. The opponent goes really aggressive with a Miner plus Fireball, and so 3style's like, okay, you're not quite back to your Mortar, and so I'm just going to go really aggressive. Gets loads of hog damage. Unfortunately, the Evo Skeletons don't manage to chain in time, but, he manages to get some damage in the left lane. We're still down about 600, which is unfortunate, but at least now, we're pretty confident as to what exactly the opponent is playing. He's not aware of the Skami, but other than that, 3style knows what all the other cards are in his opponent's deck. So, again, he goes in quite aggressively. The opponent could have gone for an Evo Mortar, but didn't want to waste it on defense, and so just decided to take the hog hit. And so we're only 100 damage behind. Skeletons to distract the Evo Archers, and the skeletons, low log, high Ice Spirit, really kind of perfect defense. It's kind of how you want to defend that kind of stuff. And you know, doesn't support the Musketeer. If you went for an Ice Golem in front of the Musketeer, the opponent would have just gone for a Skeleton King, so there's no point. You're much better just, you know, playing troops on your side of the bridge. Really nice archers by the opponent, and manages to DPS down 3style's Musketeer. So he goes for a cannon that tanks the first Evo Mortar hit, Musketeer in the right side that DPSs it down. Goes in for a Hog Rider in the left lane, because now the opponent doesn't have any building. He has no way of, you know, stopping a Hog Rider. So it forces out the opponent to go for not only minions but also a Fireball. Really, really good offense and defense from 3style. He's still down a little bit of damage, but at this point, you know, you can now try and outplay your opponent because you know what their cycle is, you know what cards they have. Starts fireballing, like, okay, now I can start fireballing the mortar, because if he fireballs the mortar, now if he goes for a Hog Rider in the left lane, the opponent is going to struggle a little bit. Really nice Ice Spirit prediction onto the minions, and then really nice Musketeer as well. Completely gets rid of the minions right at the start, and manages also with this really nice log to protect his Musketeer enough that it DPSs down the Skeleton King. Kind of a bad ability by the opponent. Nice Ice Golem by 3style. And yeah, he just fireballs and gets rid of everything. Goes for a Hog Rider as the opponent goes for a Miner. So now 3style is cycling cards to get back to another Hog Rider. Like, he's going to get back to it even quicker than if he defended the Miner first. So now he's already back to a Hog Rider. You can see how aggressively he's cycling. Gets that Hog to the tower, takes Fireball value. Like, when you get that damage, you kind of got to capitalize on your opportunity. And manages to get to the Hog to the tower, Fireballs. And yeah, just cannons on defense. Doesn't have a great way of dealing with the miners, so first let's go Ice Golem, then Skeletons. And yeah, the opponent is now forced to keep like really overcommitting on defense, and so 3style's like, okay, I can just start Fireball cycling now. This is a really impressive defense. He goes for Ice Golem that tanks the Evo Mortar, Cannon, and then Hog Rider. The Hog Rider is just distracting, and the Cannon is just DPSing down the Evo Archers and basically everything else. I feel like this is one of those defenses I probably would have choked, so actually it was kind of interesting to see how he managed to defend, you know, such an aggressive Evo Mortar, Evo Archers push. At this point, you know, he's 200 damage in head, which is really nice. Catches the Miner perfectly, forces out a Fireball on defense because he went really aggressive with his Fireball on offense. Again, something you can learn. The opponent is going to go for a Miner Fireball, but he just decides to give up because he can't get enough damage in time. With 5 seconds left, it's already GG's. Really nice game. So, in this final game, 3style is playing against Drill Cycle, which is probably the most difficult matchup of the lot. He defends this push with Cannon plus Log. That's kind of the default way you want to defend against drill pushes, but you got to be really careful of Evo Bomber, or in other variants, Magic Archer and, you know, like Firecracker or something. So you got to be able to block the bridge and keep track of your cycle. Kind of just, you know, goes Ice Golem, Hog, Skeletons. He's just cycling. The way in which you want to beat Drill Cycle is mainly by trying to outcycle their Tesla, and then, you know, also just having as clean defense as possible against the Goblin Drills, because it's impossible to not take any damage from them, but your goal is just to try and take as little as possible, and, you know, try and outcycle your opponent. So the opponent uses his Evo Bomber on the left side, and one Evo Skeleton survives on the right, and so the opponent kind of panics and goes for Skeletons before poisoning, and that allows the Evo Skeletons then to chain all the way around. And, you know, this is like the perfect start. He also manages to get King Tower off the Evo Bomber on the left side. So, you know, really, really nice start to a game and a matchup that's maybe not impossible, but it's kind of close to being impossible. Drill Cycle, Evo Skeletons, because they have such a fast cycle, it's very hard to actually outcycle them. So the way in which you have to do it is not by just playing more cards, it's the order in which you're playing your cards, you know. So here he doesn't overcommit, you know, he just goes for his Ice Golem, Musketeer, some Skellies, doesn't waste his Log or anything. Goes for a Hog Rider in the right lane. Again, the point of the Hog is not really to get any damage, it's just to get the Tesla out, so maybe he can then try and outcycle it in the future. If you never go for a Hog Rider, your opponents will never play their Tesla and you'll never be able to outcycle it. So Musketeer in the back and the right lane so that the opponent doesn't get poison value in the left lane. Again, goes for a high cannon. Unfortunately logged too early, so the opponent gets some goblin damage. And yeah, defends the Dark Prince and the Evo Bomber pretty well. He goes for a really nice defensive Hog Rider. It pulls back the Evo Skeletons and also allows his Hog to get to the tower. And the opponent didn't have enough elixir for his Tesla, so a really, really good Hog. Gets him like 1,000 damage. Really well played. And then just tries going in aggressive again. The point of going aggressive here is A, to get out that Tesla, but also it means the opponent, if the opponent went for a Goblin Drill, he would have had no elixir to really defend that push. So by going in aggressive then, it stopped the opponent from going in for a Goblin Drill push. High cannon at the bridge outside of poison range, so the opponent cannot poison it. And he just goes for, you know, Evo Skeletons. They live through a poison. I don't think they do anymore. That's been a new change in the game. But yeah, really, really clean defense. Opponent misclicks a Tesla, and so yeah, just fireball log. But you know, you can see how he managed to outplay his opponent in this game.